Hello. Hi everyone. I'm going to give it a second here because there's a little bit of a delay between StreamYard and Facebook. All right. This is a Q&A on how to not suck at second series. So I want to first thank everybody so much for participating in the How to Not Suck at Second Series 5-day challenge. I've been loving seeing your practice videos and photos. So thank you. Thank you for watching the videos and for your patience with my little email kerfuffle. That's not really a word, is it? But anyhow. So thank you. I appreciate your patience with that. And I hope that, hey, Azalea, and I hope that you have enjoyed the videos. I had fun making them and trying to kind of pick out a few things that I really thought could help everybody with second series. And so I wanted to open this up for a Q&A. If you have any questions on any of the videos that you've watched or anything in second series, it does not have to be limited to the videos. So if you have anything on second series questions, pop them in the comments here, and I'll do my best to answer and help you. A couple of the things that have come up earlier that I wanted to answer now was specifically with the extremes forward bends. Back bends, followed quickly by the extreme back bend. I'm saying this backwards. The extreme back bends like Ustrasana, Laghu Vajrasana, Kapotasana, which are very shortly thereafter in second series, followed by the extreme forward bends such as Ekapada Shirshasana, Dvipada Shirshasana, and Yogini Drasana, plus actually even Titibhasana would be an extreme forward bend. And there's, that's a lot on the back. And so that is why second series is traditionally taught one pose at a time. So you really take your time working through these sections and give your body a chance to adjust. It's also typically taught individually, right, in the Mysore room, so that you're getting that individual instruction specific to you, specific to your body, to help you through those really difficult times when you're going from the extreme back bending, such as Kapotasana, to extreme forward bending, such as Dvipada. But I do think that ultimately those extremes are beneficial to us and to our practices. And it might not always feel like that, but they keep you really awake. They keep you alert. It goes back partially to why I think Ashtanga yoga is dangerous. Like Ashtanga yoga is dangerous, right? Like it's not it's not inherent. Well, maybe it is even inherently dangerous, but there's a lot. It's an edgy practice. It's meant to be an edgy practice. And I think second series is, it's even edgier. It's edgier than primary. They get increasingly more challenging and more force you to be more and more awake as you progress through the series. And when we talk specifically about primary series versus second series, primary series is super aponic in nature, really grounding postures. Primary series is much more pranic in nature, much more uplifting. And I think even that makes you more awake. That lifting up, that wakes you up more. Now, when we, and even you see that in the postures, right? Like the postures of second series are much more lifted off the ground than primary series, for instance. And they become increasingly more difficult deliberately to keep you more awake. But that is also why it's traditionally taught one pose at a time, right? Like I wouldn't traditionally have somebody come into my Mysore room, give them primary series one day and second series the next day. Like that's super jarring for the nervous system. And second series is very, very much about the nervous system. That's why it's called Nadi Shodhana. But it's also really jarring for the physical body. So you do want to kind of progress slowly. But back to why they get increasingly more difficult is because as you become more proficient, as you become more comfortable, it's way easier to check out, to start noticing, I don't know, like dead skin on your toes, or fixing your ponytail, or paying attention to what the person next to you is doing if you're back in a shala. And that's one of the things that second series does for you when you're new to it. Like you can't check out. You can't all of a sudden be like, oh, let me look out the window, because there's more danger associated with the postures, right? Like you don't want to check out when you're in Kapotasana. Like if you can, I mean, it sounds impossible to do that anyways. You don't want to check out when you're upside down. You don't want to check out when you have your feet behind your head because there's more at stake. There's more danger associated with those postures. If something goes wrong, it's going to hurt a lot better or a lot worse. So I think that that's part of the reason why we have these increasingly challenging postures in second series. And a lot comes up in second series. And second series is meant to bring a lot up. So a lot comes up in the body, but a lot comes up in the emotional body also. It's very emotional for people. I've had a lot of people cry as in the Mysore room as they're working their way through second series. I mean, that's really, really typical. And it's again comes back to that central axis that second series is all about. And this is where all your chakras are, all your choke points. And so when you start to really work deeply into them, a lot of emotion gets untangled and it's let loose, and it often shows up in tears and crying on the mat. But sometimes it's also a little bit more of the sense of being jacked up or a little bit angry. So there's a lot of emotion that is associated with second series. And that's why it's really, really important to always, especially I think when you're working on second series, to preserve a good amount of time for the closing sequence so that you can really let the work that you've done on your mat settle in. And, so the closing sequence gives you a chance to sit with that residue of second series, to really let it sink into you, to let your body gradually transition from vigorous practice to everything else that you're doing in your day. So letting it like kind of settle, getting a sense of the residue of the practice, and really, really sitting with it before you go on to your next thing of the day. So paying up, if you are feeling a little bit jacked up after your second series practice, really make sure that you're spending enough time in your closing sequence. Too often, and I'm guilty of it also, I see people going from, deep back bends to having a cup of coffee and rushing out the door or whatever. And it's just, that also takes away from the sustainability of practice, because you really want to measure your practice in terms of decades. Like you can't measure it in years. You can't measure in months or days. It's something that's measured in decades. And to do that, you need to make it sustainable, and closing sequence is something that can make it sustainable. And I actually think a lot of the things that I've showed you, and that I am, I think there's one video left, you'll see, that's what part of the How to Not Suck at Second Series challenge is, to use props, use the wall, practice in a way that's sustainable, because that's truly the best way to not suck at second series, is to do it for a long time. Because guess what? Everybody sucks at second series when they first start it. Everybody does. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people you want to quit second series after working on Pashasana. I mean, Pashasana is such a hard pose. So first pose of primary series is Dandasana / Paschimottanasana. First pose of second series is Pashasana. I mean, this is huge. Like, what a giant difference. Everyone can sit on their butt, but hardly anyone can squat and then try to wrap your arms around your legs. And so right away, we learn so much in that first posture of second series. But actually, I think, Pashasana is almost like this, like, primary series summarized all into one posture. You see that in Pashasana, you see that in Kranchasana, you see that in Shalabhasana. Like right there at the very beginning of second series, you have all the work that you did in primary series just jammed into 3 postures, which is why you want to be really efficient and proficient and comfortable in primary before you move on. Generally speaking, sometimes if someone has an injury, I would make exceptions. But back to the second series for all, How to Not Suck at Second Series challenge. Like, use your props, use them until you no longer need them. Like, I'm not saying I want you forever putting your heels under a block in Pashasana. Like, maybe you do that for a few months, maybe you do that for a few years. But you gradually check in with these things. So maybe you have your mat rolled up all the way and you're putting your feet on that in Pashasana, and then you can scale it back to 3/4 of the way, to half of the way, to a quarter, to just like your heels on the very edge of the mat and toes on the floor. You're gradually weaning yourself off these props. But initially, they're really helpful to have. Like these props can help you train your body and build healthy patterns. And healthy patterns are so important for second series, because, left to our own defaults, we reinforce bad patterns. Like that's part of what happens in yoga. That's why, I don't encourage people to practice when they're exhausted, because you typically are just reinforcing a bad pattern at that point. And props can really help you build new patterns. And then once you have that pattern in your body, you get rid of the prop and hopefully you don't need it. So we use props in the second series for all challenge. For Pashasana, we use props for foot behind head, and we use props for Pincha Mayurasana. I use props in Kapotasana. I have props for everything that we've done. I could have showed you with props, but I specifically showed you those 3 in the How to Not Suck at Second Series Challenge, because it's a great opportunity. That's a weird question that just popped up, but I think I'm going to ignore it. I don't even think you guys can see it here in the Facebook group, but I just got a very weird question through StreamYard. So I'm going to answer part of it and ignore the rest of it. Anyhow, the question is, during a period of stress, how many times should I do yoga a day? I would never suggest doing yoga more than once a day, 1 time a day. More than that, it starts to get, it starts to deplete you. And that comes back to what I was saying prior about reinforcing bad patterns. So you don't want to practice when you're tired, because then you're more likely to reinforce a bad pattern. And that bad pattern is going to start to feel normal, or it's going to start to feel good, until all of a sudden, 1, it's really, really hard to break. And 2, it no longer feels good because maybe you've tweaked something or you've been doing something wrong for long enough that it's starting to hurt you. So, and with second series specifically, you would practice second series initially about 5 times a week, really. Like it's a big chunk of your practice. And so once you've stopped doing primary series, you do second series on Sunday through Thursday and primary on Friday. So that's a big practice week. And that's another reason to kind of go slow and let it sink into your body and let yourself really, really absorb the practice and really take it in and learn from it and really absorb it. I mean, maybe that's the best way to say it, because that's how you learn. And so the true secret to how to not suck at second series is to do it for a really long time. If you think you suck at second series now, everyone thinks that when they first start. And sometimes everyone thinks that even when they're all the way through second series. That's, first of all, it's really easy to be self-critical. And I bet your teacher would never tell you that you suck at second series. But it's also, really, it's hard to see what a good job you're doing. And it is easy to feel like you're falling in second series. But the truth is that everyone spends a lot of time falling in second series. Hardly anyone gets these poses the first dozen times they try. Like, we're talking about effort for the long haul. And when you are doing second series, like, this isn't something that you learn overnight. It's something that's learned over decades. So I've been doing second series, I think, for about 14 years. Something like that. So it's been a while. And my experience with second series has changed many, many times over that time. Like, there was the time when I thought it was impossible, that I would never be able to do it. There were times when I really loved it. There were times when it was making me cry. There were times when it was making me angry. There were times when I didn't think it was working at all. There were times when I felt imbalanced. There were times when second series was the only series I could do because of wrist pain or because of knee pain. Like, second series is a great practice when you have pain in your body, like wrist or knee specifically, hamstring too. And so ultimately all the series kind of balance each other out. And I think that that's another important reason to go into second. Like, sometimes you have to go a little bit before you're ready, but to move forward into second series is really, really important, because you don't want to have primary series dominating forever, right? Like, that's, again, the aponic energy, which I mentioned at the beginning of this little talk, and you want to balance it out with pranic energy. So there is definitely such a thing as doing primary series for too long. And ultimately, what I want for my students is I want to get them to third series, because I think third series kind of balances that energy from second series. And again, like, we're talking over years, maybe decades, but But ultimately, and Tim Miller was actually the one who first said that to me. He said that he thought it was the teacher's responsibility to get students who are able to move into third series. Because again, second series can be a little less grounding than third. So does anyone have any questions of anything in the challenge or anything for me in second series? Because I'm happy to try to answer them. Tomorrow we have kicking into Karanda and, you know, learning how to kick. So let me just say this, because I know probably a lot of people are not yet working on Karandavasana. You can use that technique for kicking your legs into lotus and shoulder stand, which probably everyone's doing or doing something like that. So watch the video even if you're not working on Karandavasana, because it will help you with getting your legs into lotus anytime you're upside down. So if there are no questions for me, we have the last day of the challenge tomorrow, and registration is open for the full-length course, and it is an awesome course. This is I think the 4th time that I've taught it online, so there's a lot of people who have graduated from it, who are in the, not that you ever really graduate from second series, but it's awesome. It's 6 weeks. There's a lot of classes and workshops and in it that happen over Zoom, and then there's also a ton of pre-recorded content. Anything that happens live will be uploaded to the course. And I mean, I love second series. I've studied second series, like I said before, for 14 years, but I've also studied it with really outstanding teachers. I've spent a lot of money and a lot of time learning the ins and outs of second series, and my hope in this course is to make it a little bit easier for you, to help you with, you know, learning it and getting comfortable with it in your body and really benefiting from second series. So be sure to check out that second series interactive course. It's 6 weeks starting on March 20th, and it is awesome. Like, it's a really good course. I'm really proud of it, and I think it can help anyone here. And I do see I have a question from Erica. Mayurasana tips for people with long legs. Mayurasana is possible for all body types. And, you know, you don't want to sell yourself short with the long legs. Don't sell yourself short with your long legs. But I think that, you know, like we all, you know, Mayurasana is hard for everybody. I don't know that it really matters if you have short legs or if you have long legs. It's a hard pose. So the easiest way I can describe this is you want your legs to have an action of Shalabhasana and Mayurasana. Like, that is how much they're not only reaching, but they're lifting, Erica. And so there's, you know, your elbows are like a fulcrum, and you're pushing your abs into your elbows and your elbows into the abs. So there has to be opposing forces there. And then the legs, it's an inner spin, and they are actively reaching away from you, like they full force reaching. So they have to feel like they're reaching infinitely. And anything less than that probably won't work. But what I really like for Mayurasana is to put just the tippy toes on the wall, like the tippy toes, like hardly anything. I mean, it's pushing like that much into the wall, and just using that tiny little bit of resistance to help you extend your legs more and work on finding the balance there. So again, like, that's another example of how a prop can be super useful in second series. I mean, they're just, it trains your body. So you do that with Mayurasana for a while, and then before you know it, you don't need anything in Mayurasana. Like, you're able to find that resistance. You've used the wall as an opportunity to build strength. You've used it as an opportunity to find resistance, and you've used it as an opportunity to help you activate your legs. And then gradually you work your way up the wall. You know, maybe you take one leg up at first, switch the other leg up, and before you know it, you won't need it. But that's a great example of how much props can help you in second series. I mean, in all your asanas, but definitely in second series. Does anyone else have any questions for me? Okay, well then, I will see you all tomorrow in the Facebook group for the last day of our challenge, and I am going to look at Karandavasanas tomorrow. So if you want to film your Karandavasana tomorrow morning, I'll look at 5 people. I'll start the thread. Don't start the thread if you want to do this, but, you know, tomorrow morning when you're practicing, I know it's Friday, but sometimes I like second series even on a Friday. If you want to film your Karandavasana, the first 5 people who post it in my thread, though, let me start the thread. I'll give you feedback on it. It's a hard one. I know that everyone can use a little feedback on Karandavasana. And even if your Karandavasana is just Pincha Mayurasana for now, I'll look at that too. All right, so my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out the full-length course. It is actually already about halfway full, almost already, because some pretty awesome people have already signed up. So I am gonna cap registration because I wanna make sure everyone gets attention from me. So with that, sign up, don't wait. And I'll see you in your Karandavasanas tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in.